Okay, so learning how to forgive, why to forgive, when to forgive, and how to forgive is so important for you, for your happiness in this lifetime. If you want to be free, you want to feel peaceful, you want to be happy, and you want to achieve what you want and have good energy and good health, you need to know all about forgiveness. Non-forgiveness is a toxic state to be in. It is not a place mentally, emotionally, or physically for you to be dwelling. So my job today is help you see that and help you know how to move out of that through the methodology of forgiveness. Forgiveness is a tool. Now, this is going to be applicable for whether this is something in your deep past that you're carrying that you need to forgive and move on from, whether it is something intensely traumatic and very, very difficult that you had to deal with in your past, whether it was just something 5 minutes ago and passing, whether it was something that was really minor and is just kind of like a gripe and is not really that big a deal. It doesn't matter. Forgiveness is applicable in all situations. It doesn't matter what intensity, when it happened, or how forgivable or unforgivable seemingly your mind would make the event. And I just want to say to anyone listening to this that if you have had some serious trauma in your life, and particularly I would relate that to physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse, I understand that this topic is very, very sensitive for you. I respect that, and I want you to know that I share this message with you with the absolute most love and respect, because I know that many people that come looking for help are not dealing with minor things, and the big traumas that we have in our life that we need to forgive and let go of and move on from are the most important for us to detach from and find the healing in, because they have the biggest impact in our life. So it's not at all to say that in this vlog when we're talking about forgiving that it doesn't mean anything and it wasn't valid and it didn't have a big impact on you, but it's to say that those things are the most important things for us to let go of. And it doesn't matter the size, the bigger it is, the more important it is that we're able to forgive and move on and let go for our own sanity. And I really want you to find peace and healing in your life. And so that's why I'm making this vlog for our community. Now, what is forgiveness to start with? It is not forgetting what happened. It is not absolving anybody, yourself or anybody else, of responsibility. It is not pretending it didn't happen. It's certainly not endorsing what you did or what anybody else did, okay? It's not embracing it. It's not saying it was okay. Very important up front to say that. Then I looked up, because I wanted to get the actual definition of forgiveness, I looked it up in the dictionary, okay? I looked it up in a couple of dictionaries, and it's really interesting because you can come at forgiveness from different angles. You can come at it from a faith, spirituality perspective. You can come at it from a religious perspective. You can come at it from just a kind of psychological perspective, and I'm interested in all of those. I am a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. I was raised in a religion, and I don't practice in that religion now. I'm a deeply spiritual person, and I'm deeply fascinated with the whole area of psychology. So I like to blend all of that in Pinch Me Living to find a middle balanced way that honors all the different kind of traditions, but finds a way forward that's very practical and will really respect wherever you stand on this, whether you're atheist, you're spiritual, you're religious, it doesn't really matter. It can still be applied. So one of the definitions of forgiveness is to stop blaming, and it's to stop feeling anger, and it's to stop requiring payment or obligation from someone else. So you could say that non-forgiveness would be feeling angry, blaming, and requiring payment and obligation from somebody, whether it's you or somebody else, depending on who you're holding to account. So your non-forgiveness, how interesting is this? It's got nothing to do with anybody else. See the definition? Feeling angry. Who's feeling angry in non-forgiveness? You. It's to stop blaming. So if you're in non-forgiveness, then you're blaming. And who's suffering the consequences of blaming? You are, nobody else. So if you're in non-forgiveness and you've got anger and you've got blame, so those are both very detrimental to you, not really to anybody else. And then third is to stop requiring payment or obligation from somebody. So if you're in non-forgiveness, you're requiring payment and obligation from somebody. And quite often, to be honest, the payment and obligation that you hold people to by being in non-forgiveness is not an actual payment of anything you're going to get. It's a feeling and a energy attachment that you've got to that person which is holding them to something that they can never pay you back for. They can never fulfill that obligation because what's happened has happened, what's done is done, and it cannot be undone. And so you're requiring payment from someone who can never pay you. You're requiring them to fulfill an obligation they can never fulfill. If you are in a position where you are requiring something of somebody that they can never give you, then you are going to be in suffering, because you will be dissatisfied and hurt and upset that they can never pay you back what you feel like you should be paid. So right now, according to the definition of forgiveness, the non-forgiveness is totally to your detriment. It leaves you in blame, anger, and requiring payment and obligation that you can never receive, which are three very toxic places for you to be. So non-forgiveness wouldn't be anything to do with the other person. It would be all about you. And equally, here's the most important thing. Forgiveness is all about you. Forgiveness means you don't have to feel anger. You don't have to feel stuck in blaming and the consequences of that. And you don't have to require payment or obligation that you'll never get and that you'll constantly feel upset about that for. Instead, forgiveness allows you to move into peace, to move into detachment and release, and to not have to hold anybody to account for anything. Like, what a responsibility to have to be the judge and jury of someone, and what a responsibility to have to hold someone to an obligation for the rest of your life. It's a big burden to carry. And if you're in non-forgiveness right now, I bet you it feels like a burden, right? It's not nice. You don't want to carry it. I know you don't. That's why you're watching this video. So let's talk about when to forgive. We talked about what forgiveness is. Let's talk about when to forgive. People might say, I don't know when is the right time to forgive. I don't know if this is forgivable. When do I know it's time to let go and forgive? And I'm just going to give you one really simple tip. And I say this with the utmost respect. It doesn't matter what's gone on. The time to forgive is always now. The situations to forgive are all situations. The people to forgive are all people. The acts and deeds that were done that need forgiveness and that you want to be forgiving for are all deeds and all actions. It does not matter how bad, traumatic, awful it was for you. The reason it's always now, it's always all people, and it's always all actions is because it never serves you to be in non-forgiveness. That's why. It's actually not about judging the situation, the event, what was done to you, what you did, what they did. It's not about judging that and then measuring it on some scale. Oh, that's not forgivable, that is forgivable. The time to forgive that is now. No, I need to hold that for another 10 years before I can forgive that. I don't feel like they understand, so I'm not going to forgive. It's never about that. And that is a massive distinction. It's a very important point to understand, because there is never a time when it serves you to carry that non-forgiveness burden a little bit longer. There just isn't. It doesn't mean it's easy to forgive, which is the next step. That's fine. It doesn't mean that's easy. But the time is always now. You want to remember, forgiveness is your gift to yourself. It's your liberation, because when you're in non-forgiveness, anger, blame, and holding someone to account, those are energies that you direct at that person or that situation. So you are directing energy at something. What you focus on, where you focus, energy goes. Where energy goes, something grows. When you send your energy with focused intensity on anything, you help it grow, you help it breed. You are pointing a garden hose at the garden and you're watering it to let it grow. Now that's why visualization is really powerful, because you can put your visualization on your goals, you put your energy and focus there, your energy goes there and something grows. But equally, you put your focus on something you don't want, anger and blame and payment obligation towards somebody and something that happened in the past, you're firing your garden hose at it and you're watering it, you're fertilizing it, you're letting it grow and breed. And the other thing is, I want you to think about this, where your energy goes, you create an energy attachment. So you put your energy and focus on someone, you create an attachment to them energetically, an energetic cord with that person. So if you are in blame and anger and non-forgiveness and payment obligation and judgment towards somebody, you keep yourself tied to them. You keep yourself tied to them. If you don't want to be tied to them in that situation, your job is to remove the anger, blame, remove the judgment, the payment obligation, to literally shift your attention and to move forward with your life so that you don't end up still having that person dragging along with you. Before we talk about how to forgive, I just want to say to you that forgiveness is the only remedy to this ill. whatever's gone down, that you are totally feeling like you can't forgive, forgiveness is the only remedy to that ill. Forgiveness is the counter to non-forgiveness. Forgiveness is the counter to blame. Forgiveness is the counter energy to payment obligation, holding someone to account and judging them. Forgiveness is the only remedy for this ill. And I really want you to hear that so that you know that, well, if that's my freedom, then I've got to learn. I've got to figure this out. I've got to be committed to this. I've got to be dedicated to being willing to try this whole forgiveness gig so that I can be free, because I want that freedom for myself. So we've talked about what forgiveness is, and we've talked about when to forgive. Now we want to talk through the process of how to forgive, right? That's the big grunty and most challenging part of forgiveness for a lot of people. So let's just talk through a few key points that might help you be in a mindset where forgiveness feels possible to you. So first of all, you want to remember that every single person that is living and breathing on this planet right now is on their own journey. And everybody is a soul, is an essence, living their life, doing what they possibly can to survive, to get by, to feel good, to feel successful. Some people are doing that well, some people are not doing that well. Some people are conscious, okay, they're awake, they're aware, they have higher awareness of themselves, and they're doing a relatively good job of unfolding in their life journey and doing their best to evolve and grow and aware of the impact on other people. Other people are not awake, they are not conscious, they are asleep, they are unconscious, they are lost in the grip of their own needs, their own wants, their own agendas, they are lost in the grip of their own ego, they are carrying around their own burdens from their life path to date, they don't know how to cope with those things. And unfortunately what happens is that they can undertake unconscious and unaware action, whether by default and they're unaware of their flow-on impact on you, or out of very difficult emotions, they actually on purpose do things knowing full well that it's going to cause destruction and problems for other people. Both of those scenarios, they're asleep. Even if they are aware in their personality self, I'm going to do this on purpose to hurt you. I'm going to do this knowing it hurts you, even though I'm not doing it to hurt you, I'm aware it will hurt you, I'm still going to do it. Even though that's aware in your personality self, that's still asleep. That is still asleep from a consciousness perspective. That is not higher awareness operating. Someone who is awake and who is conscious does not undertake actions where you hurt another person and then you do not make good on that. So if you're in a situation where you are feeling angry and blameful towards someone and like you can't forgive, and that person is someone who did something on purpose to you, someone who didn't do it on purpose but still hurt you, someone who is not even owning up to their own actions, is not interested in that, has maybe sought forgiveness but you feel like they really don't even understand the impact that they had, you need to remember that just like you, everybody else is going through their own difficult journey. Someone could have hurt you in a very, very traumatic way. So we have all sorts of things in relationships going on where there's deep trauma gets created. Okay, whether it's abuse or people being deceitful or dishonest, and all sorts of things are occurring in life. And whether it's on a minor scale or a major scale, the point is that we all make mistakes. We all do things playing out our pain and hurting other people as a result. On, again, a small scale or a large scale. We all were raised in a certain way, our minds were conditioned in a certain way, and as a result of that, and whatever pain and limiting beliefs and trauma and grief and problems and lack of enoughness in ourselves, carry out patterns and play out cycles, and those sometimes hurt other people. Does that endorse what goes on? No. Does it mean it's acceptable? Absolutely not. Does it mean that people should be absolved of those things? No. Does it mean we should just forget and forgive and ignore it and move on? No, it doesn't mean we should just forget and ignore it and say it never happened, but there is only one way for you to be free, and that's for you to forgive. Now, here's the interesting thing is that you know that you've done some things in your life, because everybody has, where you have had to seek forgiveness from someone else, where you've needed to forgive yourself. And now whatever you did may not be as extreme as what you're struggling to forgive in somebody else, but the point is this: If you don't believe that all situations and all people warrant forgiveness, and by being in non-forgiveness to someone else at a deep level, you know that there will be times in your life, or times have already been in your life, where you also don't deserve forgiveness. Because if you're withholding forgiveness from somebody else, that means you know it's possible for someone else to withhold forgiveness from you. That's a really precarious place to be, because it puts you in a world where you can do wrong and be not forgiven. It's a very isolating, very distressing, very unnerving place for a human being to be. Again, if you withhold forgiveness from someone else and you deem there to be situations that are not forgivable, and we're not talking about forgiveness as an endorsement or saying it's okay or saying I'll just forget and I'm going to be your best friend now, none of that, just saying forgiveness so that I can free myself, that I can find peace. If you deem that that is not possible for others, then you know at a deep level that it's not possible for you, and that whatever's gone on before you don't deserve forgiveness, and whatever might come, there's possibility you either don't deserve forgiveness or you won't get forgiveness. And it's a very unnerving place to be. You're not necessarily consciously aware of that, but it's very important to remember that when you extend forgiveness, you are telling yourself that you are forgivable, that anything you've done or you might do is also worthy of forgiveness from yourself or from other people. The next point about how to forgive is to know that it's not your job to hold that person to account. It's not your job or your responsibility to be judge and jury to them, to right a karmic wrong. It's not your job to hold them to account, to hold them for payment and obligation for what they did in life, to you, to someone you loved, whatever went down. And if this is about you, like you're struggling to forgive yourself, it's also not your job to hold yourself to account and to judge yourself. You want to know that the universe has a methodology, a way of moving energy for things to rebalance, for people to learn lessons, for people to find healing from their mistakes, for people to come to see what was wrong, how to adjust it and how to rise up. And every person has their own very individualized path. And when someone hurts you, your job primarily is to forgive and find peace in yourself, not for them, for you. And then you know that you don't have to hold them to account or judge them, because the universe is already on that. The universe has already got a plan in place for them to learn and heal and grow. Not for them to be punished, no. For them to learn, for them to see that mistake, for them to learn from it, for them to learn in a way that they don't repeat the pattern again. Why? Because it's best for their evolution that they don't. The whole point of life is to heal and grow and evolve. If you take on the job of it's my responsibility to right this wrong and it's my responsibility to hold them to account, that's a massive burden to bear, which ties you to them for as long as you carry that perspective. So there's a great relief in going, I can let go of this. It is safe for me to let go. It is safe for me to forgive, because they will still learn and they will still come to their own evolution. They will still grow through this experience, but I don't have to be the one that's involved in making that happen. I can trust that their own journey will unfold in a way that they do learn that. It's too much of a responsibility for you, and it's not your responsibility. So part of the forgiveness process is acknowledging that you don't have to be the person responsible for that righting of that wrong. One of the other things to remember when we talk about how to forgive is to just acknowledge that it's often easier to project pain about a wrong onto the person who caused it than it is to go within yourself, just detach them completely and just go within yourself and actually feel the pain and do the healing. So quite often people will, rather than turning the spotlight back on themselves and doing the forgiveness, which then opens up resolution of that pain and creating your own growth and your own healing, which is very much sometimes confronting, it's much easier to just take the pain and project it onto another person. And there's no growth for you in that. So let the universe help them with their growth, and your job is, when you detach, then you've got all this free time and focus and free energy, and it then gets projected back at you, and you can say, well, what do I need now? What healing needs to happen in me, and where am I going with my life? If I'm not in anger about this person, if I'm not in blame and I'm not in holding them to account, then I'm actually free to be accountable about where I'm going and what I'm doing, and looking at my own healing, because that's your own journey. That's not about them. They're just a trigger. It's irrelevant who they are. It's what it triggered in you and what it did to you. That's the point, and that's where you want to go, and you want to say, look, you know what, for whatever reason I've gone through this in my life, small thing, little thing, big thing, traumatic thing, doesn't really matter. Whatever reason that's happened to me, I have to accept it because it's fact. And so what is available to me now? And the number one thing that I want for myself is release from them. I don't want to carry that burden anymore, and I want to find healing for myself. And so we take the focus off them, we put it on ourselves, and then you've got an access point to move forward. Now, in terms of how to forgive, you can literally forgive someone, like you can verbally forgive someone, you can in writing forgive someone, but you can just forgive someone in your own heart. You don't have to go and have a conversation with people. If you want to, because that feels like it would really clean it up for you, then you can do that. But otherwise, you can journal a forgiveness, you can meditate a forgiveness, you can visualize a forgiveness. If the person is no longer alive, you can write them a letter, and then you can burn the letter to release that forgiveness and really move on. There are lots of different ways, but you can communicate it, or you can do it within your own self. The point is that this is for you. This is not to let them off the hook and give them peace. This is to give you peace. And when you have peace and you detach energetically, it actually will benefit them. It will allow them to learn and heal and grow. Because at a deep part of you, you may think on a surface level you want them to suffer, but your higher self, the true nature of who you are, you don't want them to suffer, you want them to learn. You want them to learn, because their learning will help them grow, and it means they won't repeat this for their own pain and also for pain on other people. Think about the times in your life where you have taken on a non-forgiveness with somebody, something someone's done. Notice if you're in anger, blame, or holding them to account and obligation. Then just say to yourself, when is the time to forgive? The time to forgive is always now. It doesn't matter what went down, I choose to forgive. No matter how hard it is, I want to forgive, because forgiveness to them is my freedom. Then you're going to say, am I going to literally forgive them verbally in writing, or am I going to forgive them in my own heart, in a meditation, a visualization? Am I going to journal it? Am I going to write a letter and burn it in order to release it? Just choose the methodology. And then you would simply say, for this event that occurred, I extend my forgiveness to this person in order that I can be free. That's it. For this event that occurred, I extend my forgiveness because I choose to be free. The thing is, when you forgive, is forgiveness does not come with criteria and with barbs. And quite often when people are extending forgiveness, there are buts that go with it. Or there is the whole story about what happened. You did this and that, and this is how I feel, and this and that. And there's a lot of attack that comes wrapped up with the forgiveness. That actually doesn't help you. That just makes you feel the pain all over again. So one of the greatest things you can do is get into a state of peace and calm, and to give a clean forgiveness, which is, I extend my forgiveness to this person for this event because I choose to be free. And that's it. Not with a whole lot of stuff around it. Keeping it really clean and really pure, in alignment with your true nature. Not with your personality getting involved in all of your pain wrapped up in it. Okay, and coating forgiveness with actually a whole lot of extra stuff which just keeps you stuck again. Now, just looking at what we've talked about, what is forgiveness, when to forgive, and how to forgive, I'll tell you that I've used this myself. I've used this at 3 major times in my life, and I've used this just last week on something very minor. So something that happened in my teen years with a relationship where I felt that there was a lot of broken trust, and I was very, very hurt, Everyone can relate to that kind of experience. I also used this in my 20s with a really sad experience that I had with a friend, and I felt really, really hurt, and I had a lot of grieving and upset about it. I also used it a couple of years ago with someone more in a detached kind of acquaintance setting where there was a lot of integrity and trust breach. And all of those situations were very, very emotive for me. So very upset, very hurt, very confused, shocked. All 3 involved shock. So I understand what it's like to go through that kind of experience. And I'll tell you what happened. The first time it took me about 8 years to forgive. The second time it took me about 4 or 5 years to forgive. The third time it took me 5 hours. When you practice forgiveness, what you start to realize is the longer I hold on to non-forgiveness, the longer I'm in pain. And so what you do is when you get to the point in your life where you don't want any pain anymore, you just get quicker and more willing to forgive, not for the other person, just for yourself, because you want to be free, right? And From experience, I can tell you it's entirely possible. In one of those scenarios, I did not talk to the person at all. I did a forgiveness in my own heart and a meditation. The second person, I didn't talk to them. I sent them an email, a very compassionate, just very simple forgiveness email, just like I mentioned. The third time, I did forgiveness face-to-face verbally. I didn't ask anything of the people. I just said the statement. I didn't wrap it in anything. I didn't want anything to do with the people after that. It wasn't about rebuilding a relationship. It was just to release me and release them so that they could just move on and be peaceful and happy and not feel like I was lurking in the background feeling unforgiving, and so that I could move on, not with them as a shadow around me, feeling negative and feeling tied to that anymore. And the recent example was really powerful. Someone communicated with me and they were quite negative, and it wasn't really highly emotive for me, but it was just somebody being very critical. And I got a little wound up about it for about 5 minutes, and then I was like, well, you know what? Somebody who just wants to be critical and mean for no purpose is probably not very awake, and maybe they struggle with that in their life, and maybe they're a bit disconnected from their own soul, and I know what that feels like, and this isn't really about me, and I don't really want to carry this kind of feeling that I've got about them. So after 5 minutes, I just sat down and I went, you know what, I forgive this person. That person was born one day, a beautiful little baby, a beautiful little soul, and I'm sure they wouldn't intentionally go around hurting someone, and if they did intentionally go around hurting someone, I feel I feel really deeply for them, because that can't be a very nice place to live in, having pain inside yourself and projecting it at someone else. The second I said that to myself, I felt free. The second I said that to myself, all feeling of uncomfortableness and upset at them, and why would they say that to me, and why would someone be so mean for no reason, all of that was just gone, completely gone. All I felt was peace and release, and I just kind of actually wished them well. And so it's entirely possible forgiveness to transform your life. I really encourage you to take what you've heard today, maybe listen to it again if you feel like it kind of resonates but you're not fully on board yet, and just sit with it. And if you're ready, take action and undertake some forgiveness with something in your past that you want to detach from. If you know anyone who's maybe really caught up in a state of non-forgiveness and it might be helpful, please do share this with them. I know that there's many people that are suffering around the world, carrying around burdens from past relationships, from friendships, from things that have happened at work, things that happened in their childhood, sometimes extremely traumatic things, sometimes maybe minor gripes that we have held on to, grudges and resentment. But no matter what it was, it always serves us to forgive so we can be free. And I want you to be at peace. I want you to be free. It's important. You deserve it. And if this in any way has helped you, I'm really grateful and glad to be able to share it with you. I respect whatever you're going through, and if this in any way helps you on your journey, again, I'm really pleased. So if this has been helpful, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do send me a message if you want to. Share your experience with me. Ask me any questions you might have. I would love for you to be on my email list if you're here on my website, or subscribe if you're here on YouTube, so we can stay in touch and I can support you further on your journey. Thanks again so much for tuning in. My very best wishes.